You're listening to Trysteropod episode 11. I'm David Kulma. The other guy is Dorian Wallace.
That's me.
And we're two composers and leftists, and we make a podcast that nobody listens to because we don't share it. So,
that's right.
If you're listening to this in the future, this exists because it'll be a while before you actually see it. So anyway, yep. Just so you know that we're recording this on February 18th, a Tuesday, before 2020. That's before the Nevada voting and after the bullshit that was Iowa and then New Hampshire and whatever the fuck that fucking thing you want to call impeachment was. Yeah, that's over, supposedly. And now Donald Trump basically has free reign to do whatever the fuck he wants.
Yeah.
Anyway, but we're not going to talk about that motherfucker, at least not right now.
Nope.
So who are we going to talk about, Dorian?
Well, we wrote down, we couldn't think of anything to talk about, so we decided let's talk about our favorite author and thinker, Noam Chomsky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Chomsky is a huge influence on myself, and I actually, you were the first person to ever get me into him, David.
What? It really happened that direction? I'm surprised.
Yes, it really did.
Okay.
No, because I was starting to dig into like anarchist thinking, and I was looking at, it was a little too complicated to read at the time, but it was a lot of like Bakunin and Proudhon and those sorts of like really early anarchist thinkers, and just the translation and the early English was just very difficult to read, but I understood the anarchist principles that I agreed with. I just realized as I'm saying it was hard to read, I'm about to say, and then I read Chomsky. It was not easy to read at all. But no, you had actually mentioned you were reading a lot of Chomsky, and I started watching his YouTube videos, just like interviews, and it's just, he's one of those thinkers where I feel like every time I dig into him, I learn more and more and more. It reminds me a lot of Bob Ashley to a certain extent.
To mention a random person, yeah.
Yes, yeah. Well, I mean, just like sort of like a wise elder who's directly influenced you and me and what we do.
Right.
Who just, the first time I heard it, it was like, oh, that's interesting. Or that's like, but then like the 50,000th time I've listened to it, it's like, what? Like, oh my God, he said this! Like, and that's just how I interpret the world. But
sure.
Yeah, so huge fan of Chomsky.
Of course.
Yeah. He also, kind of helped me personally realize that anarchism wasn't just like the anarcho-punk scene. It's like, MIT linguist professor, father of modern linguistics, actually,
mm-hmm.
And just like a straight up academic.
Mm-hmm.
I just recently rewatched his documentary. I think it's
Is it Requiem for an American Dream?
No.
The manufacturing consent one?
Nope.
Okay.
Hold on, I'm literally like it's in my my whatchamacallit, my history, so I'm looking at it really quick.
So on YouTube.
Rebel Without a Pause. Rebel Without a Pause.
Yeah, there you go.
Have you seen that one?
I think so, but I don't remember.
Yeah. So there's interviews with Mrs. Chomsky, his first wife. And I can't believe I just said Mrs. Chomsky, but she is also Dr. Chomsky. Anyways, she's talking about living with Noam, and she's like, well, people do what they do, and what he does is he reads. And at this point in his life, he was reading 8 newspapers a day and about 60 academic journals a week.
Oh my God, really?
And it's just like,
okay,
what?
I haven't seen this. Yeah, okay. Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Like, and there's one of my favorite parts is he gets they show one of his talks, and he comes out before they introduce him as one of the the top 10 most cited writers in the humanities, and the people they list, it's like Karl Marx, Vladimir Lenin, the Bible, William Shakespeare, and it like goes through this whole list, and it's like Noam Chomsky is in there.
Mm-hmm.
And Chomsky comes out, and one of the first things he says, he's like, I really get very, very intrigued by people, selling out these theaters to come listen to me talk, because I'm not really an interesting speaker.
Nope.
And I'm not particularly good at oration.
Nope.
I'm not a particularly good storyteller, so I only can assume that people are here because they just want the information.
Yep.
And it's like, yeah, that's it, man.
Well, the thing is that there literally is a barrier to it by just the fact that he has no charisma.
Right.
Right. There's no like something to kind of pad it. You have to be willing to sit and listen to a man drone on for a long time because you care about what he's saying.
Right. Right.
But I think that he makes that point as he's talking, is that he thinks charisma's bad.
Yeah.
Because it gets in the way of the truth.
Yeah, exactly.
It allows all these liars and bullshit artists to do things.
Well, I mean, we're bringing him back again, but look at who our president is. Like, that man is very, very charismatic.
No, hold on, Dorian. Dorian, let me do a liberal thing.
Yeah.
You mean your president.
Oh. Yeah.
Sorry, I just had to do that.
No, that was good. But yeah, God damn it. They do say that. Jesus fucking Christ.
Right, where he's not my president.
Right.
I'm like,
that's gonna
as if any of them have ever been a moral actor in the world.
Right.
I mean, this is like,
yeah.
I was watching some. I've gotten really into. We'll keep talking about Chomsky because it'll all go back to Chomsky anyway. I've been watching The Hill Rising, their Rising TV show, with Crystal Ball and right-wing fuckjob. He's got a name, Sagar. I don't remember his last name. Anyway, but the show is organized around having a left-wing commentator and a right-wing commentator who both represent sort of the politics of sort of Bernie Sanders style politics with like Michael Brooks or something kind of politics, with somebody who's got sort of Tucker Carlson's politics.
Oh,
so I mean, minus some of the overt racism, right? So they agree on the fact that both parties really should be advocating for the working class. So they have places of alignment politically.
Yeah, so it's like populist, is that?
Yeah. So they're both kind of people who are oriented around populists. Crystal Ball is great. The other guy makes good points all the time, and you just have to remember that. Oh God, wait, he's right winger.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you ever watch Kyle Kulinski's breakdowns of Tucker Carlson segments?
I don't think I have watched many. I usually try to avoid those kind of things, but I imagine Kyle's good at that.
Oh, he's quite good. He's very good at pointing out when Tucker gets a really good point across.
Right. Well, I mean, because to be honest, I mean that's the thing that's dangerous about Steve Bannon. Mm-hmm. Is that Steve Bannon is an idiot and a fuck job, but he's also right sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why that works. Anyway, so Sagar's not really that bad, but anyway, I mention all that because I was watching like a live thing they did.
Okay.
And they brought on Jimmy Dore.
Okay.
He was at this live thing, and I just was watching Jimmy tear into, like, isn't it amazing that, the thing about our current moment, what Jimmy Dore was saying is that the is that the president does so many terrible things that they unearth that Barack Obama did them first.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it's the whole idea that that Donald Trump is a singular evil.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he is in some ways, but in a lot of other ways, he's just continuing all the stuff we all despise anyway. So it's that's the reason that it's like, it just goes to show you that we're living in this period of time where it's like, so we're fucked, and like Chomsky, we all have to choose to vote for Bernie Sanders, which is actually a pretty good situation to be in. I mean, it's not perfect, of course, but we're having to sit here and go, well, would you vote for Bloomberg?
I mean, Bloomberg makes me look at Joe Biden like more positively.
Yeah, you're like, at least terrifying. At least Joe Biden was poor for like 50 years.
Yeah.
He's only gotten rich recently.
Yeah, it's like Joe Biden lost his wife and child. That's awful.
Yeah, yeah, and then he lost his his protege son,
Yeah.
To pain, what was it? Some horrible brain cancer or something? I don't remember what Beau Biden died of. It was just really terrible. Yeah, just like, yeah. So it's like, you can feel for Joe Biden as a man, but listening to all this shit that Michael Bloomberg said in the past, in his political career on little clips on the internet recently, it's just like, hey, did you know that Michael Bloomberg was so loathsome? I mean, like, he was loathsome before, but Jesus. Anyway.
Yeah.
But so it's this situation where it's like, so we've got the opportunity to vote for Bernie Sanders if Michael Bloomberg doesn't literally buy up the whole Democratic Party in the meantime.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So...
Which he's completely capable of.
Right, exactly. Well, here, the perfect example is the fact that he can give millions of dollars to Stacey Abrams' organization in Georgia that's advocating for all votes being counted and everyone getting a chance to vote who's eligible to. And Stacey Abrams can turn around and not... So the thing I was hoping for, because I don't really pay much attention to Stacey Abrams other than like, oh, well, she sounds like a reasonable human being. But she turns around and she's willing to defend him. And I was sitting there thinking, oh, well, you know what I would do with her if I was her? I'd take his $5 million and then I'd invite him to the thing and then I would ask him some of the most uncomfortable questions about race issues I could possibly can, based upon his record and things he said out loud.
Right.
But that's not her modus operandi, I guess.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show you that, there are a lot of people that are masquerading as, quote, progressives out there that don't share Bernie Sanders or Nina Turner's politics.
Yeah.
And those are the people that they're harder to figure out. Like how do you politically beat these people who act like they're your friend? Like Pete Buttigieg.
I mean, I've had the experience. There's a thing I stick on the side of pianos when I play them. Sometimes it says "This machine kills fascists," and it's a reference to Woody Guthrie, what he had on his guitar. And I'll often get told, like, "Oh yeah, like you on social media, love your post or love how you're willing to fight, blah 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 blah." And then I've had people get really uncomfortable, like, while they're on stage with me when I do this stuff. And, like, almost ask to stop. And it's like, you have no problem being in the audience, but suddenly you're, like, when you're up here, it's like it's a lot scarier, like, to put this sign out there.
Yep.
But it's like, it's pretty wild, just because it's like, it's not like I'm putting the sign up in the middle of, in the middle of Ohio, where I'm from, with a really redneck audience that might actually self-identify as some form of fascist. It's not like they're going to be in the audience. It's not like they're likely going to be there.
Right.
And it's like, who? And the other thing is, it's like, the sign's a fucking reference to Woody Guthrie. Like, the guy who wrote This Land Is Your Land. So it's just,
So
well, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, I know you
know.
Yeah,
I know you know.
We know this.
but all I'm saying is that, like
to everybody else. You mean it would be like he's the equivalent of Irving Berlin,
Yeah, he's like I'm saying that he is literally, like, some of his songs are taught in schools as children's songs.
Right.
Because he's a beloved folk singer to a lot of people who do not know his politics.
What did Jason Clarke used to call Pete Seeger? I think he referred to him as a dirty hippie or something. So,
oh, really?
He hates Pete Seeger.
Wow.
So just so you know, we have a mutual friend from years ago. Hi, Jason. If you're never going to listen to this,
yeah.
Who's rather right wing, and of course wouldn't like Pete Seeger, which is fine. Mm. Anyway, we like Pete Seeger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway. I actually Pete Seeger is well, first off, his banjo playing is fucking dope.
Right. Of course.
Like he's actually, like, a fucking incredible. Just player to begin with, but it's who's Ruth Seeger.
Well, there are a lot of Seegers.
Yeah,
there's Peggy Seeger. There's Mike Seeger. There's
Ruth Crawford Seeger.
Oh yeah, Ruth Crawford Seeger.
Yeah, she's a modernist composer from that first
early
half of the 20th century.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize she was a huge influence on Elliott Carter, but
yep.
What was her relationship to Pete? He was
stepmother.
Stepmother, that's what it is.
Yeah. The other Seeger siblings, are the ones that are famous, are Ruth Crawford's children.
Right.
With Charles Seeger. Yeah.
But yeah, I just I love that because I actually played one of her solo piano pieces a year or two ago.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I mean, dude, some of these chords.
She's great.
They made no sense, like in a like it was like, you want me to what? And then, like, you play it, and it's like, oh, but
here,
thank you.
Play one. Yeah. You got it there. Play it. Play a chord or so.
Yeah. But no, she's a pretty incredible composer.
No. Play a chord on the piano. You remember what they're like, right?
Yeah.
Play one. Play one so it's in the microphone.
Right. Oh, me.
No, like, do it right now.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me see if you can hear this.
I could play it. Yeah, there you go. That's nice. I could hear that. So do it one more time so I don't talk over it.
Yep, I'll play that, and I'll play, like, another one of the chords.
Nice.
Isn't that shit dope?
Yeah, it's great. No, and everyone else and anybody listening to this is going, what? Yeah. Exactly. You're exactly right.
Yeah, but she was also, I don't know if she wrote folk music or if she was a musicologist.
Well, she helped collect them. The story's kind of complicated about the Seeger family, but it basically comes down to the fact that she and her husband, Charles Seeger, were both, really hardcore atonal modernist composers who decided that they wanted to be communists, like people for the working people, and so they decided to collect folk songs. Apparently Charles Seeger always had this interest in other cultures, so that he was always interested in those kind of things. He's one of the first ethnomusicologists. What was called comparative musicology at the time. So he's an important figure. I mean, it comes down to the fact. So they went hard left at some point. Which is why they kind of abandoned composition and moved into other fields of, like, collecting folk songs and stuff.
So this is not going to surprise you at all, but apparently a lot of her harmonic language was influenced by Scriabin.
Oh yeah, no, I knew that. Yeah, of course.
I didn't, but I'm not surprised at all.
Well, my theory friend, who studies Scriabin. I mean, so like she's moved on to studying Ruth Crawford because specifically of that connection. She studied with one of Scriabin's students in Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
There's this is kind of an interesting thought, and keep in mind this is not an academic thought. This is like a marijuana thought.
Dorian, just so you know, in certain circles, those are not separate things.
Oh yeah. Well, which is our circle, but I almost think of if you looked at the musical experience in a circle, and it's like at the top of the circle is the most popular, like generic, like as generic as you can possibly get, like sellable, blah 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 blah. Like as capitalist as you can get popular music. If you start at that part of the circle and you start to fall, one direction or the other direction, one direction leads more into folk music and indigenous music, and the other way starts to get more and more into avant-garde and experimentalism. Mm-hmm. And at some point, they actually meet in the center. The only reason I had this thought was I was working with the Sing in Solidarity chorus, and we had this gospel singer come in who was teaching everybody how to sing, and she started doing these crazy bitonal like throat shrieks.
Oh, nice.
And I just kind of had this like moment of like, like I've seen Charlotte Mundy and Paul Pinto do those exact same things, and like the thing that was so cool was to realize that both this woman as well as Charlotte and Paul would have, if they met each other, would have massive amounts of respect for each other's music, and they're both of these music forms are very anti pop music. So I don't really know what that means, but it's just one of those like
horseshoe theory of music.
Sort of a horseshoe theory, except I'm thinking way more Buddhist. It's I mean, yeah, fuck it. I'll call it horseshoe theory for this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I lost a little of my audio just in the minor seconds there. So don't worry about it. Keep going.
Yeah, no, I mean that's basically it. I mean, and keep in mind this isn't like I don't know if I'd ever commit to this idea beyond just sort of stating it like this, but it never surprises me when I find out people are really into early music and contemporary music, or indigenous music and really experimental music at the same time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah. But yeah, it cracks me up just because I always think about Pete Seeger, how he's another one. People really don't realize where he sits in the political spectrum.
Really?
I mean, yeah. Some people really don't. I have aunts and uncles who have no idea that he was a communist.
But they got blacklisted in the 50s.
Yes, but that was a different era.
The Weavers ended because of the House Un-American Activities Committee, as far as I understand.
Yes, but keep in mind, my aunts and uncles were all like 10 years old in the 50s.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe you. I'm just.
Yeah. And this is anecdotal, like
Right.
But yeah, it's just one of those things that like yeah, I don't know. Like there's Pete Seeger, there's Woody Guthrie, there's also, I mean, you ever listen to Phil Oakes?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Phil Oakes actually has some of my favorite lyrics in the planet. Right,
so this is the one, is that the guy who did the Love Me Liberal?
Yes,
song?
yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the lyrics right now. Yeah, Love Me, I'm a Liberal.
By the way, just so you know, when I was running for Congress, my campaign manager, of course, is just a guy who drives around and sells nuts, bolts, and screws to auto shops. He would make reference to this song, I don't know, once a week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
He loved this song. No, but the thing is that it was always a salient reference.
Yeah. Oh, that's yeah. So it's I cried when they shot Medgar Evers. Tears ran down my spine, and I cried when they shot Mr. Kennedy, as though I'd lost a father of mine. But Malcolm X got what was coming. He got what he asked for this time. So love me, love me, love me. I'm a liberal. Then,
Yeah.
I go to civil rights rallies. I put down the old DAR, which was the Dykes of the American Revolution. I love Harry and Sydney and Sammy. I hope every colored boy becomes a star. Whew.
Oh.
Yeah, but don't talk about revolution. That's going a little bit too far. So love me, love me, love me. I'm a liberal.
Yep. Sounds about right.
I cheered when Humphrey was chosen. My faith in the system restored. I'm glad that the commies were thrown out of the AFL-CIO board. And I love
God.
Puerto Ricans and Negroes, as long as they don't move next door.
Oh, wow.
So love me, love me, love me. I'm a liberal. Yeah, these are dark lyrics, man.
Yeah, well, So Dorian, I don't know about you, but nothing's changed other than the specific language we use for any of those things.
Yeah, no, the sentiment is very much still there.
Right. I mean, I live in Cleveland, Ohio. I mean, it's a rather segregated place.
Here's the one. I vote for the Democratic Party. They want the UN to be strong. I attend all the Pete Seeger concerts. He sure gets me singing those songs. And I'll send all the money you ask for. But don't ask me to come on along. So love me, love me, love me. I'm a liberal.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So which part did your campaign manager reference? You said your campaign manager referenced that song a lot? Yeah.
Of course. Well, just the reason he did it is because I was running as a Green Party candidate in a race that was like... The other candidate was a guy who... The Democratic candidate was a guy who worked as a tax attorney at Goldman Sachs.
Right.
And ExxonMobil.
Right.
And I'm supposed to somehow act as like that's okay.
Yeah, love me, love me, love me. I'm a liberal.
No, the thing is he acted like, well, I was their cop making sure that they were following the rules. And I'm like, no, you were the guy who made sure that they did everything so that they saved all their money.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You enabled them.
Yeah.
You were their enabler, man. Not that I ever made those points out loud in the campaign, because I only got 4 minutes at a time, and I had to define what the Green Party was, and then say what I was running on, and then I always ran out of time.
Yeah.
So anyway, just the thing that we were cognizant of is, so this is the period of time after the first Women's March, when your average liberal woman, I should say, your average liberal middle-class white woman was all really angry about Donald Trump, right? Mm-hmm. And so a bunch of things got done around that time to sort of stop Donald Trump in certain ways. But now that it's a few years later, Donald Trump can expand the Muslim ban and no one pays any attention.
Yeah, exactly.
So we were in that position, and it was just we knew that we weren't going to catch on so much with that cohort of people. And they were the most politically active at the time. Indivisible groups and stuff. Because they were going to do the kind of thing that everybody else... this thing that Chomsky talks about, which is you got to vote for the Democrat in presidential elections,
Right.
And they applied that in other directions. And, it's like, well, why are you running as green? It means I can't vote for you. And I'm like, well, no, you're going to lose. And I'm like, well, the reason I'm going to lose is because you refuse to vote for me. It's not my fault that you've decided that the people that you don't know are going to vote Democrat.
Right.
I mean, if you supported me, we could maybe change their mind. Right. But it was a more complicated race than that. But it's just so it meant that there was always like this feeling of, I got a little more press than usual, but it didn't mean that I was. Mm-hmm. It didn't mean that I was somehow going to be successful in a lot of ways because I was unwelcome to these people who wanted to defeat the Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was a threat rather than a more electable candidate.
Wow. Yeah.
Right?
So,
but I was the person advocating actual left-wing positions.
Right.
I was the one advocating for Medicare for all. I was the one advocating for free public college. I was actually just calling it free college.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the one advocating for, affordable housing. And I was the one talking about climate change when it actually showed up. I got laughed at by a room full of Republicans at a debate because I said the greatest national security threat to their country was climate change.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they literally burst out laughing. You can find video of this on the internet somewhere.
I remember there was the video where your opening statement was something about making sure that trans people are considered people.
Yeah. Well, they were talking. Yeah. People were complaining about something having to do with trans rights and children, and I'm like, we have to remember that there are trans children, by the way, everybody.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah, it's like So it was like I had to be the person actually advocating for trans people, right? Because I'm the only one who's even sitting there with 3 people running for Democrats. They're not going to mention trans rights, even if they agree.
Yeah.
They're not going to bring it up. Yeah.
Oh my God. No.
Right.
I had an interesting conversation with a liberal composer friend relatively recently.
Yeah.
It was funny because I said, the thing about Donald Trump that's been so fascinating, like 2 things just in my own personal experience from it. The first one was like, I used to think it was like, I'm kind of a, lefty liberal something or other, and then Trump like popped up and was like, oh my God, I'm a socialist. like I'm actually one. I'm not just like flirting with the idea. Like I am that. But the second one, I said this to this guy. I said, yeah, I will say that Donald Trump did give me a little bit of hope for the American system. And let me explain why. It was like, like the checks and balances, like when he first came in, he really tried to go full force fascist, like with like travel bans and everything, and it was found unconstitutional. And I realized that myself and this guy were coming from completely different places because he had lost complete trust in the American system, and for me, I never had any trust, and so
right.
So like I was like, well, like it allowed so that a total fascist takeover couldn't happen in a couple of days. Like I'll give him props there.
Right.
But it was we had a pretty good conversation about it. Just because, I don't know, it was very fascinating to realize that people really do have faith in this system,
sure.
to a point where they don't, like something like Donald Trump has to come along to make them realize it's fucked up.
Oh yeah, well Dorian, so you've got more trust in the system. I'm still cynical of that.
Oh, like, dude, just like I'm now at 1% trust.
Well, I know, and I think it's way too much.
Yeah.
So here's the reason: is that people view Donald Trump as an existential threat.
Right.
And to be honest, most Democrats appear, like your average Democratic voter appears that they would likely will vote for Sanders if he's the nominee. Mm-hmm. And if a bunch of the people drop out, a bunch of people are going to move to Sanders, and Sanders will probably win the nomination, assuming all this Bloomberg stuff doesn't end up being a gigantic factor. But as soon as Donald Trump isn't the president anymore, all of the stirred up emotions are going to go away. And everybody's going to return to being okay with, wars in the Middle East and, propping up dictators in Central America and, literally naming presidents out of thin air of other countries that they're like taking a person who isn't a national figure whatsoever and saying, he's the president of Venezuela. Can you imagine if we did that with like Canada? We're just like, hey, this person's the prime minister of Canada now. It's not Justin Trudeau anymore.
Right.
Yeah. No, they're going to be okay with that again.
Yeah.
I mean, they're okay with it now, basically.
Yeah.
But, so the idea that somehow there's going to be a large-scale shift where your average American is going to look at the current political landscape as soon as Donald Trump isn't on it anymore and go, man, we really need to fix all these problems. I'm skeptical.
Mm-hmm.
Because I stood up for 3 months in South Carolina and talked about these things. And, I got a fair amount of notice, and there were some people that are very happy that I did that. But, what was the effect of that?
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Right. So of course, it's wonderful that Donald Trump actually can't take over the country and turn it into a fascist state immediately. But, if you talk to a certain kind of communist, they'd say that everybody to the left of them, everybody to the right of them is a fascist.
Right.
So it just depends on your definition of fascist.
Oh yeah.
I just love
Yep.
that. Oh, so let me tell you a story. So, so Dorian, so there have been some interesting effects of all that. So my radical turn to the left, basically from a mixture of learning some things and being fucked over by being an adjunct college professor. I took that large swing to the left here. And a person who gladly voted for Obama twice without really paying much attention. Anyway, my dad, I introduced my dad to Noam Chomsky somehow.
Oh, wow.
And, well, I never brought it up to him because I thought he knew who Noam Chomsky was because my father was a conscientious objector at the end of the Vietnam War. His draft number never got called, but he turned 18 around the very end of the war. And so, or whatever it was, like in the last period of that, he was on the young side. So, and he knows about like the Berrigan brothers and stuff, mm-hmm. and he knows Pete Seeger better than I do.
Sure.
And he quotes Arlo Guthrie songs. I mean, it's like I just figured he knew all this stuff. But so he started watching Chomsky on YouTube.
Okay.
And that led him to Chris Hedges.
Oh, I like this.
Right.
This sounds good.
To the point that I was having a conversation with my dad recently, and he referred to himself, seemingly, as an anarchist.
Yes! Oh, that's great.
So it was like, he quotes Chris Hedges all the time.
Oh, that's great.
And I was just like, he said that to me one time. It's like, oh, do you know this guy, Chris Hedges? And I'm like, yes, Chris Hedges. I'm so glad you found Hedges.
Oh. Wow.
Well, because my dad's a Lutheran minister.
That's right, and Hedges is a Presbyterian minister, correct?
Right, and yes, exactly. And so my dad literally now in sermons he does, now of course keep in mind that he doesn't necessarily say who he's quoting. He literally quotes Chris Hedges in his sermons now.
Oh, that is so great.
Well, the important thing to keep in mind is my dad has always taken very seriously the radical Jesus of the Bible.
Right.
So, I mean, like, it's not like any of this is unwelcome to him or, like, brand new. It's just that somebody has talked about it in a way that sort of organized his general kind of left-wingness that it was sort of like quasi-liberalness to, and connected it to his own particular kind of idiosyncratic religiosity. Yeah. So it's, yeah. No, I mean, like, so this is the things that can happen with the age of the internet is,
wow.
It's, that's the thing is you realize that to a certain extent, a lot of people just don't have access to these kind of thinkers, Dorian.
Mm-hmm.
And if you give people access to them, all of a sudden it's like, well, no shit. So I bought David Graeber's book, Bullshit Jobs, and I gave it to my dad when I was done.
Oh, wow.
He wanted to read it. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So it's, the world does change.
I had, just like, it's amazing how you can find thinkers who sort of align with yourself, like your dad with Chris Hedges.
Yeah.
That happened to me with Murray Bookchin.
Okay.
Because he's really, I really do see him as a genuine working class philosopher. I don't know, did he ever go to college?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't honestly know very much about Bookchin. I mean, I know who he is, of course.
Yeah.
Let me look it up.
Well, yeah, I'm looking at his Wikipedia. I don't even know if he went to school. Maybe he was hired by Goddard College to lecture on technology, but no, he was really one of the early thinkers for like green anarchism and the ecology movement, and like just a place where there's a lot of
Didn't he? I thought he created that idea.
Green anarchism?
Oh, not green. Oh no, I'm sorry.
No, he created
social
communalism.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Well, and he was
No, social ecology.
Oh yeah, social ecology. Yeah, no, that's
Okay.
Murray Bookchin.
Okay, yeah.
But it comes from libertarian socialism and green anarchism, and he was a major influence on Abdullah Öcalan. I can't say his name, but basically the theoretician who is behind the ideology of democratic confederalism, which is how Rojava's organized.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, but it's
I knew they were Bookchin influenced. Okay.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, Bookchin basically laid out the structure of how democratic confederalism would work.
Okay.
And yeah, it's just he's a fucking Brooklyn working class guy. And just smart as all fuck, and very concerned about how humans engage with the environment.
Right.
And yeah.
Wait, so Dorian, are you telling me that our higher education system in this country is something that trains people to not think this way?
I'm not absolutely saying that, but yes, I am.
It's the only mention of school in his Wikipedia page is that he went to a workers' school.
Yeah.
The workers' school, which is a thing. It was a training center created by the Communist Party.
Yeah.
USA Communist Party.
And I know he taught at the social ecology school, or I think it may be the Institute of Social Ecology up in Vermont.
Okay.
But I'm not even sure, that's not really, I don't know if it's an accredited university or anything like that.
Yeah, probably not.
But me and Michael Eaton and I, we've actually been talking about taking a class there. Just it sounds super cool what they teach up there.
Sure.
But yeah, it's dude, I'm so happy to hear your dad got into Christopher Hedges.
Yeah. It was
that's great.
Well, that was one of those things. Is he mentions a person to me, and I go, "Oh, why didn't I never mention him to you?"
Yeah.
I'm just sort of like, well, that's the thing is when you get into these kind of radical places, it's kind of hard to know who you should mention people to.
Well, Chris Hedges is interesting because he floats in liberal circles pretty well. He won a Pulitzer.
Right.
Didn't
he also got fired from the New York Times.
Okay.
He did. He won a Pulitzer when he was a war reporter, I believe.
Yeah.
It's it's the reason. It's what was it? The quote my dad said was that Jesus didn't die for your bank account.
Oh wow.
Right.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Right. Well, I mean, Hedges is very big about the sort of calling out the Christian fascism.
Mm-hmm.
stuff that's going on with the Pence and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right,
no, I find the Christian fascism in our country to be pretty terrifying. Because they don't go about it they don't go about their takeover through like terroristic methods. They do a slow, just like breakdown of the culture.
Right.
And it's just, it is so scary what they're willing to do to gain more and more power.
So Dorian, there's a really weird kind of story that's along these lines. So Kirsten participates in a local Cleveland area vegan group.
Okay.
On Facebook.
Cool.
And apparently somebody made reference to a comic that we know about, like an online comic called Achewood, in this group. And so she somehow befriended a person who is a right-wing troll.
Oh.
In the vegan group.
Great.
And it turns out that he's using Facebook the way you do.
Oh, wonderful.
So he's a secret right-wing troll.
Great.
That is he's not. So anyway, it was just, there was that kind of like, and I was talking to him, and he says that in the places that he's in, he likes to make memes apparently. He's participating in the meme verse, and what he says is that the young people that are kind of alt-right dudes that are in these spaces, and he's attempting to slowly kind of like get them to sort of think, Jews are actually kind of okay, yeah, kind of stuff. That apparently their ideology that these people have has nothing to do with evangelicalism.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing about alt-right is they're oftentimes atheists.
Which is an interesting juxtaposition of stuff.
Well, actually, here, are you ready for where it gets really weird? They're either atheists or they're pagans.
Pagans?
Yeah, specifically like Odinists.
Okay. So they're thinking of like the world needing some sort of hierarchically structured like ancientism.
Yeah, it's a return to like their Nordic roots because these people care so much about biology.
The only phrase that's coming to my mind at the moment is "return to forever," which is that's mean to whomever made that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll look that up. Anyway, no, yeah, okay, sure, yeah, they want to return to that kind of bullshit.
Yeah. When you said "Return to Forever," I was like, the Chick Corea band.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. Yeah, no, Return to Chick Corea. That's nothing to do with that. Yes, that's what I was thinking of, just because of the phrase.
No, it's
Kirsten likes listening to Chick sometimes. So.
Yeah. There's so I saw there was a stand like at some folklore festival where there was some craft artists who had a stand, and they were selling like pagan folklore and pagan symbols like jewelry, things like that, and they actually had to put on their sign that if you in any way associate with any fascist group, you are not welcome here.
Wow.
And they even explained how it's like, we've accepted that you guys stole the swastika, and we have at least 200 years before we can even consider bringing that back without the connotation of the horrendous crimes that have been committed. But it's very interesting how there are a lot of pagan fascists. It's weird. I mean, who was that? The woman who just recently left Breitbart. She was some anti-immigration troll, and she left because she's had a change of consciousness or something. And one of the things she was struggling. I'll put a link in the show notes for this article.
Okay.
But basically, this woman was a right-wing troll, anti-immigration troll, who's left Breitbart, and she was having religious qualms because one of the guys one of the alt-right men she was dating, like they had gotten into a serious relationship, he would go into the woods to do these blood rituals, like these pagan blood rituals.
Nice.
And like like on the surface, I have nothing against that. It's just the whole fucking fascist part that's like awful.
Right. To us, the problem's the fascism.
Yeah.
To her, the problem is the paganism.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it is very alt-right is not very Christian, though they do push Christian values. Like that's one thing. Like they talk about how the church needs to be the center of the community again. It's very strange. Like they see the church not as a religious institution but a social institution. I mean, even like Richard Spencer and Andrew Anglin talk like this.
What? Okay, so okay,
and they're both atheists as far as I know.
All right,
as well as awful fascists.
So you're telling me that they're literally operating in bad faith?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which we knew already.
Yes.
Just it's even worse.
Yeah. Like
So the idea that anyone would want a church for only social reasons is just so insulting to the idea of religiosity or spirituality. It's just like, and that's even granting that the UUs are doing lovely things. Right? I mean, like, and they let anybody, like, but, I've been in UU churches before and had someone say, yeah, there are even, like, atheists who come. We don't know why they're here, but, yeah, sure, great, come on.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's like, just, but that's an actual, like, religious movement, even if it's rather open-ended and kind of flippity-floppity.
Well, and I will say that, if you look at the history of the American church amongst the African American community, they were safe havens for meeting groups, for a lot of really proactive access to healthcare,
right.
All that kind of stuff. So it's like even myself who is an atheist, like understands the reason and the importance for these groups. But yeah, blah blah blah. That's about an oppressed group
Dorian,
of people.
You're not advocating. You're not advocating that the churches should continue doing everything they do, except the God stuff.
Right.
I mean, that's just what.
Yeah.
What?
Well,
what?
Like, I couldn't imagine being socially conservative and not religious. What would the purpose of being a social conservative be if you didn't believe in a deity telling you these things are evil or horrible?
That's a good question. I don't know. I literally my brain doesn't compute that either.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. And keep in mind, I think Mike Pence is like an evil motherfucker, and I think his views are atrocious, but I will say that his views are at least coming from his perception of a supernatural being that's telling him, it's like, all right, that at least my brain gets why he thinks that way, even though he's horrible.
Right, so it's the, watching Mitt Romney, I watched that little speech he gave before he voted for impeachment on one of those counts. And he was basically just like emotionally working through the idea that he had to vote yes because he took an oath before God, and to him that was the most serious thing he could ever do. So to him, the fact that he had to take an oath before God for the impeachment hearing meant that he had to understand that this was bad and therefore I had to vote for impeachment. to convict the president. Whereas, everybody else is just like, bad faith.
Yeah.
Right? One can say that you can say one thing about Mitt Romney. He really does take that religion stuff seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it's laudable in a certain sense, but that's the only way I'll describe him laudably. Anyway, but yeah, so it's just like you can at least you can understand where people come from in terms of trying to make these kind of making their life decisions or choosing how they arrive at what they think is important in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that's one of the harder things to understand about the alt-right is that how do you do social conservatism without the religion?
Yeah.
That's really just confusing to me.
Yeah.
But then again, that's the thing about humans is that you can literally say, well, those two identities don't make sense together. And then you can find someone who has them both.
Yeah, 2 words. Milo Yiannopoulos.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
A gay Jewish man who converted to Roman Catholicism and is married to an African-American man is one of the most awful fascist thinkers.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2 other words. Dave Rubin.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, Candace Owens. I don't know. I could keep going.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Just do we have to?
No, we don't have to.
Do we have to? I was just like, do we have to list people?
No, we don't have to list anymore.
Can we list good people?
Noam Chomsky.
Yeah, Chomsky.
Yeah, Chris Hedges.
Yeah.
Cornel West.
Yes, Cornel West. Oh, have you seen the meme going around of Cornel West dancing?
No, but
you got to look up Cornel West dancing.
Okay.
He's actually quite good at it.
I'm not surprised. He's hip at all times.
That is true.
Yeah.
He's constantly making references to music.
Yeah. No, he's a big music head. I know that.
Right.
Oh, I just found it. Oh, he's dancing in a Bernie Sanders rally.
Well, sort of. Yeah. It's like a parody.
Is it like the robot?
Don't do it!
Well, no, it's actually from the video's apparently from December. And he's at like a college party or something.
Yeah. This is pretty good.
And then they've been using it in kind of like Bernie kind of meme ads.
Yeah. No, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's surprisingly good. He's surprisingly good at that, and he's pretty old these days.
Yeah,
so
no, he's an old man, and he's like moving that smooth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, there's KRS-One. I know he talks a lot about Cornel West was a huge influence on his music, the subject matters that he tackles,
right.
Which is not surprising.
Right, and the way you know that Cornel West is a good guy is you can see all the people that have been attacking him for years.
Oh yeah.
And look who's been attacking him.
Right.
It's liberals.
Yeah.
Oh man. It's like you could just watch him as like, oh well, he's upset that he didn't get tickets to some event that Obama was putting on, right? No, he was upset that because he thought Barack Obama was actually going to be like someone with the right ideology.
Yeah, with integrity.
Being the president. And that's not what happened.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, one of the first...
He got bamboozled, man.
One of the first interviews I ever saw with Cornel West was, we gave the man a Nobel Peace Prize and he dropped 500 drone bombs. We called George W. Bush a war criminal when he dropped 80.
Yes, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, that's... Oh, so now you got to look up him talking about Pete Buttigieg. There's a good minute and a half video out there.
Yeah.
Of him talking about Pete. Like he's known his father since Pete was a little boy.
Wow.
And he literally says, "Well, I see Pete. And when I tell him, I say, I ain't. I love you like a son, but I ain't voting for you."
I mean, This is going to be a dark one. I watched an interview.
By the way, did we both just do impressions of Cornel West?
Yes, we did.
Okay, that's probably not a good idea. Anyway,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we've watched a lot of interviews with him.
Well, he is an iconic voice. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Tell your story, the dark story.
So I was watching. Do you know Tim Wise?
Yes, Tim Wise,
anti-racist activist.
Yes, the white guy.
Yeah,
who talks about
Yeah. I saw an interview with him. This is where it gets weird. Him, Cornel West, Jared Taylor, and Matthew Heimbach.
So who are those last two people?
Jared Taylor is the white nationalist guy who does American Renaissance. He's like a protege. Here, he's like the sort of the grandfather of the alt-right.
Goodness.
And then
okay.
Matthew Heimbach is the sort of the millennial David Duke is what they call him. And he started.
I just threw up in my mouth.
Yeah. No, he's a National Socialist, and he organized the Traditional Workers Party.
So wait, does he literally call himself a National Socialist?
Oh yeah, he's open about it. He's fucking.
So he literally is a Nazi.
Yes, he's literally a Nazi. But anyways, this interview, it's the two of them, two groups going back and forth. Cornell and Tim Wise versus these two fucking monsters. And it just blows my mind because Cornell literally he's like all right, brother Taylor and brother Matthew.
Right, yeah.
It's like wow, this dude's calling these two awful white supremacists brothers. Like,
well, Cornell's all about love, as he says.
Yeah. But man, I do not recommend watching those interviews if you don't want to vomit in your mouth.
Yeah, no, I wasn't gonna do that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say something. Is like, so you brought up the idea of the National Socialists. It's sort of like, so by the way, everybody, the definition of a right-wing asshole, like horrible person, is someone who says, hey, the things that socialists want, let's only give it to this small group of people that I'm in.
Right.
That's the definition of a right-wing zealot.
Right.
To be a socialist is in some sense to be an international socialist.
Right.
You care about people across national boundaries.
Oh, so yeah, just on the trolling thing from earlier, I joined the Reddit conservative page. I'm waiting to get kicked off of this one. I've been flagged a few times already for my comments. But someone was up there posting all the Hitler was actually a socialist, and he put some quote that Hitler said about socialism. And so I just typed in in Google Adolf Hitler quotes, and sure enough found one where he talks about how he's a socialist, but then in the quote he says, and we are against the Jews like Karl Marx and communism and anarchism, and he explains that he's like, my socialism is for the Aryan race. That's why it is a national socialism. And it's just like, so I posted that quote, also, the same format, just like insane quote, Adolf Hitler. And it was pretty wild watching the just tap dancing around it, because people kept going to the see, he admits he's a socialist part, and seemed to completely dodge the point that Hitler was literally calling Karl Marx the enemy and calling communism the enemy.
Yep. Which, by the way, for any real socialists, communists aren't your enemy. Yeah. Yeah. That's just by definition.
Right.
Yeah.
So it just it's just
Now, keep in mind that there are, of course, arguments among socialists and communists about what the right thing to do. And yes, you will beat somebody up if you find those people that are literally advocating the murder of other people in the name of socialist revolution.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The Maoists among us.
The Maoists, the Marxist-Leninists.
Right. Yeah. Don't want to deal with. Yeah. No.
Very
With the
thoroughly,
Trotskyites. Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. No. But anyway, it's just yes, exactly. You the well, think about it this way, Dorian. They're tap dancing around the idea that they can't stand the idea that they are more ideologically close to Hitler.
Yeah.
So they have to come up with all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you share on Facebook the compass test of your political ideology.
Right.
And all of your liberal friends take the test. And it puts them in the upper right quadrant of the test.
Right.
Which is where the authoritarian right is. And they go, but I've always identified it as a Democrat and someone of the left.
Yeah.
I don't understand this test. I don't think this is right. And it's like, no, the test is right. You are just skewed by American politics.
Yeah, exactly. Dude,
so they have to dance around the result. Right?
Yeah.
They can't understand that Barack Obama's in the upper right quadrant.
Right. Hillary Clinton's further right than Obama.
Right. And further up.
Yeah.
So it's like, and that Bernie Sanders is basically in the center of that the center of the entire graph.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is that he's the crazy,
Elizabeth Warren's actually in the center. She's dead center.
Right. So Dorian, it's literally this is just a perfect example. So I'm catching up on the New Yorkers I haven't read over the past few months.
Okay.
And so I'm in November now. I was reading the October ones.
Okay.
And there's one about Juan Guaido.
Okay.
And it literally says in the New Yorker, the journalist showed Juan Guaido stuff about Bernie Sanders and AOC. And, and they said, well, we think these people are socialists. And Guaido's like, wait, these people? You think these people are socialists?
Yeah.
These are just center left people. What the hell are you talking about?
Wow.
I mean, there's other stuff in the media about while Juan Guaido laughs at the idea that Americans think these people are socialists. He's like, you want to see socialists? Juan Guaido is in a socialist party.
Right.
The guy that the American government is propping up in order to turn over the revolutionary president who has lots of problems and issues.
Yeah.
Tons. I'm not interested in defending Nicolas Maduro other than the fact that the people basically voted for him and nobody's voted for Guaido. But, it's like literally we're propping up a socialist to take out someone farther left than him in Venezuela.
Right.
And we can't say that.
Right.
Isn't it crazy?
Oh, that is so wild.
Isn't that just insane? So it's like, and then the thing is that, and then we act like, oh my God, Bernie Sanders is this horrible socialist. And it's like, what do you mean? He wants Medicare for everybody. He wants everybody to get health care.
Yeah, he wants access to education.
Yeah. It's just like, he literally is, he's just an FDR Democrat.
Yeah. I saw really cool, and I realize we're actually coming to the end now, but I saw a really cool interview. There's a show called Re-Education I watch on YouTube. It's Aaron something, but he's an anarcho-communist, specifically an intersectional anarcho-communist.
There you go. Well, it's hard to be an anarcho-communist that's not
intersectional.
Like if you're not, you're just lying to yourself.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. But no, he did a breakdown on why he says conservatives and liberals, when he refers to it in the American sense, are all liberals.
Right.
And he does a really, really nice breakdown how there's almost 3 schools of thought within the liberal camp right now.
Right.
And it's, there's the classical liberals, which are the very pro-capitalist basically like moderate Republicans. They're not necessarily inspired by the religious aspects of the Republican Party, but they're very into the Wall Street bailouts and that sort of thing. Then there's the social liberals, which is FDR, Bernie Sanders, what we would call progressives today. And then there's the neoliberals, which is the Clinton, Biden, Obama, which are basically leaning. The way he described it, he said they're waving at the progressive social issues, but they're really diehard capitalists and don't actually give a fuck.
The capitalism trumps social issues every day, even though they signal social issues all the time. Yeah,
but it was just it was a good breakdown on the three different categories, and how they're all really students of Adam Smith and like John Stuart Mills and that sort of thinking.
The classical liberalism in basically the sense.
Yeah, and it's. The thing he said that I loved was he said the Republicans are basically liberals waving at the old traditions. The neoliberals are basically liberals, waving at social progressivism, but still following the fucking capital. And then the progressives are, they're liberal that are still involved in capitalism because they don't know how to fight it, but they care about humans. And
exactly.
Yeah.
Right. That's it. Right.
Yeah.
Well, just think about it. That gives a good reason to like when Chomsky quotes liberals. I mean, when he goes back and he's like, well, Walter Lippmann, and he points out how they're just like, well, democracy is a horrible thing, and we shouldn't let the masses choose things. The way this country works is that the elite get to choose what's going on, and that's the best way it should go. And and these are people that are supposedly for these are the people that we celebrate as great harbingers of democracy. People. So anyway, so let me plug one thing before we finish.
Sure.
So for the 5 people who listen to this. If you want a video to share with your friends who are not interested or who are thinking, hey, Pete Buttigieg, he's kind of okay. Go watch the Some More News that Cody Johnston makes. About Pete Buttigieg. It's like about a week or 2 old at this point. So it'll be something in early February, late January. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
And it is a perfect description of why Pete Buttigieg is an awful, bullshitting liar and is just like the worst kind of thing that we could be doing. So, anyway, go learn why Pete Buttigieg sucks.
Also, one last plug. If any of you ever want to meet David and I, we're performing in New York City on March 28th at the Arete Venue and Gallery doing Robert Ashley's Perfect Lives, 2 of the episodes. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So this is Trystero.
We make music.
Yep. This is Trysteropod. I'm Dorian Wallace. Other guy is David. Kulma. Peace.
Screw Pete Buttigieg.
Many